This week's episode is brought to you by Erratas. This week's episode is brought to you by Erratas.
Hey everybody, welcome to Nexus at Night, the podcast equivalent of an ingrown toenail. I'm Atlas.
I'm Matt.
I'm Root Beer.
Today we're going to be talking about card erratas, and what that means is, basically, it's when Bushiroad fucks up when doing an effect on a card, and then they have to go back and fix it, because Bushiroad is infamously bad at just doing things wrong. I also wanted to talk about erratas, how other card games handle them, because this is just a thing that happens in Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, and everything else in between. The reason we're bringing this up is there was a post that went up on Vanguardians about a week ago from the time you're hearing this, where the person posting the rant was in a major tournament. I'll just read it for you. So, here's the whole thing. Seriously, using Queen of Heart in a regional tournament should be 100% considered cheating. I was playing against somebody who pulled off that BS on me. They made an attack, and I was like, okay, I'll Sentinel this. And they're like, okay, her effect activates. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And they were like, oh, it's a misprint. Lol, you didn't know? So, side note, what he's talking about is Queen of Heart is a Nova Grappler card that was misprinted, where the actual effect is when the opponent plays a Sentinel to guard with, she restands herself, and the other effect that's printed on the card is completely wrong. It's like a boost.
When it boosts King, yeah, you can give it like 5,000 power or something.
Yeah, so that's what this guy is talking about, and continuing on. At this point, I call a judge and was like, yeah, this isn't legal, right? And the judge was like, yeah, we expect all players to have full knowledge of the card, so we can't let you undo your Sentinel play. Of course, I'm like, how am I supposed to know about it being a freaking misprint unless I'm specifically searching for Card Fight Vanguard misprints on Google? The judge shrugged, and we continued as I had to deal with a wasted turn, a wasted Sentinel, and taking 2 damage from a crit on his Queen of Heart BS. The worst part was that the guy was smug as a freaking rat, going, oh yeah man, sorry dude, but you know, misprints and all that. I could tell the jackass was snickering to himself, laughing at this free win he was going to get on this newbie player. Luckily, I was so pissed at him that in my incredibly salty anger, when I attacked his Vanguard with Imperial Daughter with a crit, I was so annoyed that I drew a crit trigger, threw all my effects to my Vanguard, and drew another crit trigger and killed him with 4 damage. The guy was incredibly mad and legitimately threw down his cards and stormed off. Seriously, though, I feel like guys who abuse things like using misprinted cards to have an advantage on players that flat out don't know that it's a misprint is just as bad as people who are cheating.
All right.
So a lot to unpack here.
All right. So first things first, in a vacuum, it is not somebody's fault for using a card that is misprinted, because the original error of the misprint falls on Bushiroad themselves.
Yeah.
However, when you play a card that is misprinted, it is important that you are clear with your opponent what the effect of the card is. Like, especially if your opponent reads the card and be like, wait, I think I should let you know this card has been errated. It had the wrong effect printed, and here's the correct effect. And make sure that it's clear with your opponent when it happens. For instance, a card that I played a lot that had a misprint was Die Bazooka. So the way the card is supposed to work is that when it enters the trigger zone, if you have a Daikaiser Vanguard, it gets grade +1, and you countercharge 1, soul charge 1. What the English card said was when it enters the trigger zone, if you control a Daikaiser Vanguard, or Soul Blast 1, countercharge 1.
So they put the
I was clear with my opponent that, oh, by the way, this card has been errated, and should countercharge Soul Charge instead of countercharge Soul Blast. That's just my view on the topic.
No, that's completely warranted, and I agree with you. But one thing that the guy doesn't really mention outright is that if he asked what Queen of Heart did in the first place, because that changes this entire story. If he just went, okay, guard against this 7K thing that's attacking.
I mean, if he picked up and read the card at any point.
Yeah.
So I assume he did. I assume he did, because I feel like. So if he picked up the card and read it, and the opponent didn't say something, the opponent is a scumbag.
Yeah.
Straight up. Because erratas are annoying, and we know that, but we as the players know that. Mm-hmm. So we as the players should do our best to kind of make the game fair, even under the assumption that Bushiroad can't do things properly. We shouldn't put all of the blame on Bushiroad for not printing cards correctly, because we hold some of the blame for adequately communicating what our cards do.
I'm also kind of mad at this judge in the story because he could have been like, did you tell the guy what the card did? And obviously the opponent could have just lied and said yes, and then...
I mean, it doesn't matter if he asked specifically. If he just read the card and assumed that the card text was correct, and the opponent saw this, which I presume he did if he picked up his card, then the opponent not saying anything is scummy. Straight up. Like, there's not much more to say about it. Because him asking to see the card is asking very directly, what does the card do?
Yeah, I mean, like, this tends to happen when I'm in tournaments, is very rarely will the person go, can I read that? They go, what does that do? And then that puts the burden of proof on you, the player, to explain what the card does, and if you're lying, then that's just lying.
Right, and if he's lying, then you can say, well, he told me this was the effect of the card, and then said, oh, the card did something else before. But I presume he just read it. But he doesn't say that in this post, but it would be surprising to me if he just made a play with the PG and then already assuming what the card does, or like assuming it just didn't matter without asking what the card did. If he at any point read the card, then I think the opponent is a scumbag.
Okay, so that begs the question, how did this turn into a giant meme in the space of like an hour? Because this has become like a copy pasta. I
mean, I think it's kind of overly long and kind of like I don't fault the guy for writing it, and I think it is a problem. But I mean, I don't know why it became a meme.
Guy does make some hyperbolic statements about using errata cards, and then
smug as a freaking rat was what stood out at me.
Yeah, and also just like he was so salty he pulled a crit on the guy.
That part is particularly obnoxious. But I think he also leaves out some key details to kind of, which makes it hard to
take his side or not.
Yeah, so I think I'm likely to take his side in this particular discussion, but I also can't conclusively say that, but I think I'm likely to.
Yeah.
But I do understand why people might make fun of this.
Yeah. I'm with him in sentiment. I just feel like this post in particular is kind of cringeworthy.
Yeah.
The way he describes the crit kind of reminds me of so to anybody who's played Yu-Gi-Oh out there or has watched the Yu-Gi-Oh anime, there is an episode where the main character gets angry and proceeds to play this card where as long as he keeps drawing monsters, he can keep attacking. And the whole thing is he's like so angry that he just keeps throwing monsters away. So it's like, draw a monster, that kind of thing. That's basically what the crit part reminds me of. I got another crit, and another crit, and another crit!
So, what's funny is that in other games, the erratas, like, in other games, like, they might reprint a card with the errata, and I know Bushiroad does this sometimes, where they'll, like, reprint the card with the correct text. Yeah. You can like trade in the old one.
Like, do you want to do that?
Like,
if it's like a collector's item or something?
Right. One of the first erratas in Magic the Gathering was a card called Rook Egg. And so the original text of Rook Egg was the following: it costs 3 and a red for a 0/3 creature. Summon Egg. It's from Arabian Nights, one of the first expansions in Magic.
Arabian Nights is the book.
Arabian Nights, the set.
Okay.
Yeah, it's based on the book. Anyway, it's called Rook Egg. And the card text is, if Rook Egg goes to the graveyard, comma, a Rook, a 4/4 red flying creature, comes into play on your side at the end of turn. Use a counter to represent Rook. Rook is treated exactly as a normal creature, except that if it leaves play, it is removed from the game entirely. So let's read the first line again. If Rook Egg goes to the graveyard, comma, you make a 4/4 flying red creature.
Yeah.
So what people were doing is they were just discarding it and getting a 4/4 at the end of turn.
That's cool. That's a good card.
So, modern versions of the card. So the errata is that if Rook Egg is sent, it goes to the graveyard from play.
Oh, okay. So it has to be on the board to.
You have to cast it and then it dies. So the very modern ones say when Rook Egg dies, create a 4/4 red bird creature token with flying at the beginning of the next end step. So this is like one of the first erratas in Magic where they were like, this is not how we want the card to work.
Was this in response to the card being used for, as a discard fodder, or was it they intended to have it be?
They intended to have it die from play.
Yeah.
And when people were just kind of sending it to the graveyard other ways, they decided that, this is not how we meant the card to work, so they errated it to kind of fit how they wanted the card to work. Mm-hmm. This is probably one of the bigger erratas Magic has had. Most Magic erratas are fairly small. Like, some artifacts used to turn off when tapped. And none of them do that anymore. Some artifacts just had like small rules things that didn't make much sense, so they errated those. Or like they added creature types on cards, stuff like that. But nothing is like truly crazy. There is one Magic card I particularly like, called Floral Spasm.
Spasm?
So the card text is it's a 2/2 summon Spasm for green and 3. And if Floral Spasm attacks an opponent and is not blocked, then Floral Spasm may choose to destroy target artifact under that opponent's control and deal no damage. So the problem with this card is it says Floral Spasm may choose.
Yeah.
But the Floral Spasm's the card. It can't choose anything.
So that was more like a mechanical change because
right.
of a misword.
So it should be you may choose to destroy an artifact under an opponent's control, and Floral Spasm deals no damage, is what it should say.
Makes sense.
But it's, like small stuff like that. But people do enjoy Floral Spasm because it's the only sentient card. Is able to make a decision, apparently. The joke is you attack with it, your opponent doesn't block, and you wait for a while and be like, I'm waiting for Floral Spasm to choose.
So I'm looking at Yu-Gi-Oh! Wikia's Erratas page because look,
Yu-Gi-Oh! Erratas are wild.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Was the only other card game I really played in any capacity, so this is the only expertise I can bring to the table. Thank you very much. So it's split into categories. There's including or excluding cards for an archetype. So for example, a card called Summoned Skull was later errated to be part of the Archfiend archetype so that you can use your Archfiend supports with it. There's correcting mistakes, like exactly what it sounds like. Updating a card's flavor text doesn't matter. Simplifying a card's text, so example, like in the olden days of Yu-Gi-Oh! They would say, like, offer this card as a tribute, and then erratas would be like, tribute this card, blah, 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 so it's active voice instead of passive voice. And then, starting in this was a couple years after I left around 2012, they started doing this thing where cards that were previously thought to be broken or problematic for the metagame were then being released as errated, and a big example of this is Crush Card Virus. So, Crush Card Virus's original effect was you tribute a dark monster with 1,000 or less attack, check all monsters on your opponent's side of the field, your opponent's hand, and all cards they draw until the third turn after this activation, and destroy all monsters with 1,500 or more attack. So that is freaking bonkers. Yep. So this was then changed to, in 2014, tribute one dark monster with 1,000 or less attack. Your opponent takes no damage until the end of next turn. Also, you look at your opponent's hand and all monsters they control, and if you do, destroy the monsters among them with 1,500 or more attack. Then your opponent can destroy up to 3 monsters with 1,500 or more attack from their deck. So this is
so much worse.
Night and day between broken and broken
almost
the way
unplayable.
Broken and the way my mom was broken after the divorce.
Please, that's not funny at all.
It lost its spirit. You know what? I don't care.
But the old card was actually absurd, and the new card is just not. Yeah. In fact, it can.
With the way Yu-Gi-Oh! Is now, people would probably choose to destroy their 3 cards just to set up their graveyard.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, they have errated so many Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and Yu-Gi-Oh erratas are so wild. And I think so. The reason that they're errating a lot of old banned Yu-Gi-Oh cards is because they want those cards to see some play again. Like these cards are fairly iconic, and they just want them to be legal. But if they make them legal, they kind of have to change how the card works. So, I think it's fine. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh is kind of a crazy, and I don't think any of these even mattered
in terms of like them still being
like
competitively viable.
Any of the cards they've like re-released like mattered as far as, or like unbanned mattered as far as
viability, or
I don't, not that I know of. Like, I feel like most of the erratas for Yu-Gi-Oh just made them worse.
Yeah. Well, like Matt said, they're trying to like nerf them,
but to the point that no one would bother.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm wondering is that this brings up like the whole Theseus' ship thing, where is it still technically the same card, even if it, if they change the effect to the point where it just doesn't matter anymore?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what's a card that was like banned for absurd reasons? It's back now.
I mean, Crush Guard Virus is a good one, but
right, and you can play as many as you want of those, right?
3, I think. Yeah, I haven't really looked at Yu-Gi-Oh's ban list in a long time.
I think they updated Sangan to be less broken.
I mean, Sangan was
on the restricted list.
Yeah, when it was from went from field to graveyard, search a monster with 1,500 or less attack. And then, so the errata is add one monster, but you cannot activate cards or the effects with that name for the rest of the turn, and you can only use this effect of Sangan once per turn.
Mm-hmm.
So they slowed it down.
Right. Mm-hmm. And they same with most of the other cards that they've like re-released from that
era, or
from like the broken cards. Like I think Ring of Destruction is now at 2, and it's just, but you can't activate it if it would kill your opponent, basically.
This has, holy crap! This has 5 erratas. 5 erratas. They edited this thing 5 times.
I'm telling you, man, Yu-Gi-Oh's wacky.
Yeah. Alright, so the original one was destroy one face-up monster and inflict damage equal to the destroyed card's attack to the life points of both you and your opponent, and then after the 5 erratas later, it's during your opponent's turn, target one face-up monster your opponent controls whose attack is less than or equal to their life points. Destroy that face-up monster, and if you do, take damage equal to its original attack, then inflict damage to your opponent equal to the damage you took. You can only activate one ring of destruction per turn.
Basically, you can only kill them with it if it exactly kills them.
Yeah. And
you have to take the damage first, so your life total has to be high enough.
Yeah. So, yeah. How does this relate to Vanguard, though? Vanguard hasn't really had any broken-ass thing that they've had to edit.
Yeah, so Vanguard hasn't had any erratas on the level of Yu-Gi-Oh! Vanguard has
never intentionally changed a card effect. They've only ever corrected errors with their erratas.
Exactly.
That's true.
I mean, the erratas are so crazy. Like, I don't know how people keep track of all the erratas.
Well, a lot of it is, I guess it's up to the person playing the card to know what your errata is, and usually, like, if you're tapped in enough to the community, you'll know. Or if you're at a locals, your friend will be like, "Hey, that's not what the effect is."
So we could apply the same argument to the Vanguard. Like, so is that guy's not tapped in enough of the community to know that Queen of Swords had an errata?
Yeah,
I guess not. But
I mean, that's the line we're dancing here, right?
Yeah.
So I think understanding it from the Yu-Gi-Oh community, where erratas are very commonplace and you need to know, most of them, or, the ones that matter. This is seen as kind of a noob thing to do, is not know the erratas of cards in the game. Especially cards seeing play like Queen of Swords.
Yeah.
So I think that's another reason why it became so mimetic, is that some communities already see this as like a very commonplace thing.
I mean, also at the end of the day, people getting angrier than the situation calls for is inherently kind of funny from a Schadenfreude-ish standpoint.
I mean, I guess it's just, I don't know. It's hard for me to laugh at that specifically, because like when you're competing in an event, I do understand like emotion.
Yeah. See, also Serena Williams, where people were making fun of her, and it was like, dude, she's in the finals. Like, of course you're going to get angry.
Like, I think it's pretty easy to call from the sidelines that people shouldn't get, emotional when they're playing something that they've spent a lot of time preparing for. And I think that's very short-sighted. And, like, it's hard for me to blame the guy for feeling like he was cheated by his opponent for his opponent not being explicit.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we're dancing kind of a close line talking about the Yu-Gi-Oh! In the sense that it's very important in Yu-Gi-Oh! To, keep track of all these erratas.
Yeah.
Like, the ones that matter.
And also, like, these erratas are, like, way, way worse than what they've been in the past.
Mm-hmm. Like, another recent example is that there's an Aqua Force card that, if it boosts an attack that hits at third battle or more, you can shove her in Soul, draw a card, and give one of your units plus 3,000. And what Bushiro just forgot to put, and give plus 3,000. So that's an errata that kind of makes sense. Compare this to King of Sword, Queen of Heart. So the incorrect text for Queen of Heart was boost King of Sword, Soul Blast, and the boost unit gets plus 5. And the correct still is it's actually 7,000 power, not 8,000. And like I said, once per turn, when a Sentinel's placed, stand it. And then the incorrect King of Sword is when it hits a Vanguard when boosted by Queen of Heart, Counterblast, and stand a rear guard. And the correct still is when placed from hand, Soul Blast, and 2 of your units get plus 3k. If you have 5 or more units, you give the 2 things plus 5k instead of plus 3. So, like, this isn't even close. At all.
Right. I think...
Go ahead.
I think, how do I say this? Like, the erratas are bad. And
really
I think
bad.
If we're going to have a community where people, like, I think if we're going to have a game where people, like, we'll talk about the wanting to get wins aspect in a second, but it's just, like, if we're going to be a community where people can, like, trust our opponents to play tight, to like, play correctly, and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community is, like, known for not that.
Lots of cheating, lots of stacking, etc.
I mean, there are people who are kind of pillars of the community that have been banned from cheating, who are still, like, front and center, or, like, in vague circles, right? Mm-hmm. And, like, you don't want that in your community, ideally. Like, I think that's the worst of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community. I know plenty of, like, competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Players who are, like, reasonable people. But, like, I think it looks bad on the community to have that. And it makes people not really want to play the game. And Vanguard, and Vanguard being a smaller game, if they have that kind of community, is going to make the game look even less appealing. The community is not nearly as big as even Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic. And just having this culture of, I'm not going to tell you what my cards do, even if they've been errata, it's not great. I think it's very important to just be clear with your opponent about what your cards do, especially if they have an errata. But, I mean, I understand. So, I shouldn't say I understand. People want free wins. It's kind of a joke in card game tournaments, is like, my goal is to play the least amount of whatever card game as possible while maximizing my prize. Mm-hmm. Which is why you want to, like, draw anytime you can,
or like buy cards,
or like split prizes and, like, not actually play.
Yeah.
Like, let's draw into top 8, hooray! And you can do that in Magic, but I don't think you can do that in Yu-Gi-Oh! And you definitely can't do that in Vanguard.
You can in some circumstances, like if there's too big of a
sample
size.
The XO in the last round, you just take the double loss into top 8.
Mm-hmm.
That feels loose because you just play it out and it'll be the same.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, the team tournament I went to where we were X1, but we got screwed out of top 8 because they didn't. If they had, like, one more round, it would have solidified who was what. But,
that's because Bushiroad tournaments don't have enough rounds.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're all best of one.
That's a different story. That's a different topic for a different day. But
I mean, I'm pretty sure we actually covered this in a previous episode because I talked about that.
I'm sure we've talked about Bushiroad's terrible tournament structure multiple times.
And we're going to many times in the future because this is Vanguard, goddammit.
Like, how much prize is there in this fucking game?
None from
Weird.
official tournaments. You get like a promo and a deck box.
I don't know. It's for the glory, or
Plane tickets,
you're supposed to say
right?
that.
Yeah, you get a free trip to Japan if you win.
Game,
You
so
don't get a free trip to Japan. You still have to pay for a hotel, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. You get half of a trip to Japan.
Which feels much worse.
Yep.
Japan's kind of expensive.
Are you guys
And
still
then
there?
like the prize of this game is like not nearly enough to warrant that.
Yeah.
I look at other communities for like Legend of the Five Rings, for example, and the community is like very like friendly and helpful, and people don't try to cheat each other. And so the prizing of Vanguard is just kind of like it feels really silly with the prize structure the way it is to cheat in Vanguard. Like people are cheating to win a game, and because they can't take a loss, I guess. And
I guess so.
pretty unfortunate.
I mean,
But, like,
I get the feeling that if you're playing any kind of card game, you're at least doing it for a little bit of the like enjoyment of winning, or any
there's a
competition
worse
for that matter.
There's a worse one where they enjoy the thrill of cheating and getting away with it. These are like the real scumbags. And I just don't think we care about those people in our community. Like, if somebody's cheating, get them out.
Well, especially
like,
Vanguard is smaller than the big three of Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Magic, and a lot of it is supposed to be very beginner friendly, and that's what Bushiroad seems to be fostering, is like a friendly, open atmosphere. So yeah, I think if this game is going to continue to flourish and survive, we do have to kind of be this like all-American Jimmy to make sure everybody's on the up and up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, back to Erratas, not so much the cheating, but what I'm wondering is there's one errata that baffles me, and it has not to do with the effect of a card, but rather the appearance of a card.
Oh
and
boy.
if you listen to our 100th episode, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and that is our good old friend Dilander. So, Dilander is a Dimension Police card. It's a grade 1, 8K. Matt brought it up during the episode. If your Vanguard's 30K or greater, your opponent can't intercept. Freaking cool. It's a car. But the card we got in English was not a car.
I don't know what this is from.
This is the exact opposite of a car. This is a girl who appears to be shooting like laser beams out of her hands that
This
are
is the only version of this card I'm using, by the way.
What?
This is the only version of this card I'm using.
Oh, of course. Why
I
wouldn't
actually
you?
refuse to use the other version.
This is now the correct version.
She's shooting a heart beam, right?
I guess so. Yes.
Well, she literally is.
So, this begs the question: what is this supposed? Like, where is the rightful place for this girl? Does that mean
Nobody
that?
People assume it's like an unreleased promo that they put on accident.
Yeah, that's what I assume as well.
Is it Dimension Police? Like,
Yeah,
Over
probably.
Purple?
It follows the aesthetic of Dimension Police. It's probably just an unreleased promo for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my theory, and I mentioned this in that episode too, was that I like the idea of it's just like a Bushiroad employee. His son likes to draw, but isn't very confident in himself, so he takes his son's drawing to work as like a show of love, and then it accidentally gets put in the printing machine, and they're like, wait, wasn't that supposed to be the car? Oh fuck, we ruined the batch. Sorry.
But like,
And then the son is like, Dad, you put my drawing on a trading card? What did you do? And then and then they get closer as father and son and have a grand old time.
I mean, what's particularly hilarious is that they kept the artist credit for the other card, right?
Oh, it says the same artist, but it's clearly not.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's just delicious.
So whoever drew this other card is probably kind of upset for that too.
Yeah.
Oh, I bet.
Honestly, Bushiroad needs to fire whatever printing company they're using right now, because Jesus Christ, these printing errors have just gotten worse and worse recently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've always had some problems, but they were usually just like... It still completely changed the effect of the card sometimes, but usually it was still something minor that, you know, if you just told someone, they could probably reasonably believe you.
Like the thing with Die Bazooka, what Matt was saying, the Soul Blast and Soul Charge logos are, you know, vaguely close looking to each other, just different colors. Like, that's explainable.
Also, like, a mistake they've made a lot in the past is, like, whenever you got to search for a grade 3 or some other card, it would usually be a grade 3 of that card. So, like, there was a starter serrated Draco Kid where you could, like, counterblast one, put it into Soul, search for a grade 3 or a Blaze unit, and then in English they printed it as a grade 3 Blaze unit.
Yeah, see, but again, that's explainable, that's understandable, you know? This is just...
They've also made that mistake, like, 3 times. But
you're right. They do have to fire this printing company. I feel like this is the moment with George Costanza in The Office with the cleaning lady.
Yeah.
Was that wrong? Should I not have done that? You're fired.
Well, but also, like, those two weren't even the only promos they messed up. Like, there was a promo in June where the actual skill is, like, when an attack boosted hits, you can Soul Blast one and return to your hand, and then it got printed as, put it into your soul, give one of your units 5k, and then if something was retired that turn, give it 10k instead.
That's better. Like, that's just better.
Yeah, but, like, these errors are just completely crazy. Like, they're making up entirely new skills at this point.
I still think there are, like, unreleased promos out there that didn't make it past testing or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
What testing? What am I saying? So, yay,
yeah,
Erratas.
the art erratas are quite... Yu-Gi-Oh! Has had some art erratas that remove questionable imagery.
Boobs, blood, blades. That's typically what gets removed.
Spikes on bras, yeah.
Yeah. Harpy's armor, or whatever it was called, where it had like the spikes on the boobs. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I mean, and
but
again,
I think there's fewer of that. I'm not familiar with Pokemon. I'm not sure how many erratas there are.
I'm not sure either, because none of us have played Pokemon. So
I mean, I've played Pokemon, but not for years, and I didn't care.
Makes sense. I mean, what do you think of like Konami doing that versus Vanguard being like, boobs, butts, we don't care, let's do it?
Well, I guess I can come up. I do know some Pokemon erratas.
Okay.
So, if I recall correctly, there was an item called Pokemon Catcher that used to just pull a Pokemon up, like a gust of wind. So it was it just said pull a Pokemon up, but now you have to flip a coin, and you can only do it if it's heads. So they've kind of weakened some cards by adding coin flips to them.
Okay, so much like the Yu-Gi-Oh thing, where they were doing it as a way to nerf it.
Right, or like plus power no longer attaching to a Pokemon, for example.
Okay.
And there's some small busts for some other cards too, but for the most part, yeah, like those are some been erratas in Pokemon to like kind of nerf cards in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's only so many items in Pokemon that do the same thing.
Yeah. I guess another question is like, have other card games fucked up as royally as Bushiroad has been lately, where like they just release a card that is completely incorrect?
I mean, on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Errata page, there was a fair amount of the...
Yeah, but like, how many of those are like minor semantic things versus this is just a completely different skill?
Let's see, correcting mistakes. They had one where it was, okay, no, maybe not completely different skill, but it's like one where when it's changed from defense to attack position, but they meant to say attack to defense position.
Mm-hmm. But again, those are like understandable things.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think there's anything that's been quite that bonkers.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I don't know. Bushiroad's QA, man.
Quality control. Quality all caps.
Nexus at night, QA.
I really just think like the big takeaway from this kind of discussion is that we really like just be clear up like when you're playing on somebody, whether they're new or whatever, whether even if you dislike them, I don't really give a shit. Just be clear what your cards do. Play a fair game.
I mean, if they go, what does that do? Answer them.
Yeah. Be like,
you
want to read it? Like that is not you know that doesn't fucking help, and that is actually absurd. And I just again, we don't know this guy's specific situation. We know a good bit, and I'm leaning toward that guy. But don't be a scumbag. It's a fucking game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, don't ruin other people's fun.
Yeah. It's like everyone's trying to have fun, and I know that fun is like almost zero sum, right? But you know, if you're gonna lose, you're gonna lose. Don't try to like lie about your cards to try to win a game where it just makes you look like a scumbag.
Yeah.
Because they'll find out, and then they'll like, oh, never trust that guy again.
Yep.
And then they'll out you on Facebook and we'll laugh at you.
And the guy that posted it if they're extra salty.
Hopefully not, but that's why I kind of feel bad about making fun of that guy, is because that means other people won't want to share these kinds of incidents.
That is true.
I mean,
so it kind of does negative work to kind of make fun of the guy.
I mean, we chose to leave him unnamed for a reason. Also, I couldn't find the original post. I just found like the 8th copy pasta.
Right.
Because I remember seeing the post when it first came up, and I was like, huh, that's weird. And then I went back in on Vanguardians because of whatever notification, and then I saw it like 3 more times. I'm like, okay, this is clearly something that's happened.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then we decided to make an episode on it, and here we are.
Yep. Do we have anything else to say on the matter?
I got nothing else. How about you guys?
Yeah. Just don't be an asshole.
Well, that's too hard.
Don't be an asshole. Erratas are, you know, up to the player with the card, I think, to know.
Yeah. Like...
And to tell the other people if it's...
You should be honest, and if someone doesn't know that there's an errata, just help them out.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. All right. So then, find us on Twitter. Why did I forget what we do every week? That was fun. Find us on Twitter at Nexus at Night. You can find me at Atlas Novak.
Me at Wiggums, 2 G's, 2 Z's.
Find me at Plasma Eclipse.
Oh, and to those of you who are listening to this on SoundCloud, iTunes, or YouTube, you can now find us on Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. So now I can officially say you can find Nexus at Night wherever you get your podcasts. Hooray!
Finally.
Yeah, I know, right? I finally...
Just not on NPR 1.
What?
Just not on NPR 1.
You know what? Should get Ira Glass as a guest.
Ira Glass got with American Life, didn't he?
He what? He got fired.
Didn't Ira Glass stop doing This American Life?
No freaking way. I don't know. I haven't listened to This American Life in a while. No, that's a... that's something that we can talk about off mic.
That's what I thought I heard.
Looking it up. All right. Until next time, I was Atlas.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Root Beer.
And have a good night, everybody.